Welcome everybody to another episode of the Mindbliss podcast. I'm your host Matthew with the most, and today I have a special guest in the building. Someone who I admire, someone who is right for the culture, someone who has a daily task of leadership, and I just wanted to sit down and get his thoughts on leadership development. So without further ado, Dirk Rhodes, how are you?
Mr. Williams.
First of all, it's an honor for you to take the time out, so I want to give you your praise and your flowers to take the time out to sit down here with me. I want to start the podcast with a simple question. How do you interpret leadership?
That's a loaded question, but I'm going to try my best. Let's just start off with this platform right here. One of the main reasons why I'm sitting here is because you asked me to come on and talk about leadership. So I'm going to look at you. I'm following you right now. I never thought of having a podcast myself. So you're actually leading me as your guest.
Thank you.
Your son, you're actually showing your son something about ownership, like what you spoke about on your last podcast. Entrepreneurial activism, right? Trying to show him how to go about being a better person. So that's leading right there. As far as leadership doing a more serious level, I like to think about leadership in terms of you could be an authoritarian, you can be cooperative in terms of if you're leading a group of people, or you can be a delegator. So there's different types of leadership, but the main thing is you gotta have a vision. Why are you doing what you're doing? And so from that perspective, we can then expand. If you want to talk about leadership as far as delegating or being cooperative or being an authoritarian, then we can go from there. But leadership in and of itself is not positive or negative, right? I think throughout history we've seen where you could be a leader and you can do some really bad things, or you can be a great leader and do some really good things. So leadership in and of itself is not good or bad, it's what you do with these different tools that you have.
Absolutely, and I think, and I concur with everything that you say, delegation is definitely important for leadership. I'm not here by myself. I have people here, Akil, my sound guy, Omar is here, Jeff's here, they all serve a purpose. My sister's here, shout out my sister. They're all here serving a purpose. I think leadership for me is self-discovery. I think it's something that is awakened from within, and it goes to show us that, you know, the culture and our environment plays a part in our upbringing. When I was in school, nobody told me that I could be a leader, right? So for me personally, it's about self-discovery, knowing that inner leadership quality in me, and I think it's in all of us, male or female, right? But we've been so suppressed, especially females.
Absolutely.
Females have been extremely suppressed.
Absolutely.
Into, back in the 1900s, they weren't allowed to read. Coming forward up to this time, they're known to just wash, cook, and clean.
Can't vote.
Can't vote,
Suffrage.
right?
Yeah.
Suffrage. So their hardships are just as important. And I think it's a self-discovery thing. And it's hard to teach leadership. I think sometimes there's situations that kind of move you towards that capacity. With me, it was my crisis. I didn't really choose to become a leader. I just had to develop that leadership quality in me to surpass the crisis.
So you would say that you had to become a leader through circumstance?
Absolutely. And I think crisis is a great thing.
But what's the next? What was there another option? Because you could have gone another direction.
There's definitely another option. There's always the option of not doing anything.
Right.
There's always the option of inactivity. So I could have forfeited my responsibilities. I could have not been active in certain people's lives, or even my son's life. It was, I need to propel myself so I can lead with my life and also lead by example.
And that's what I find extraordinary here, is that off camera I heard you say to Akil that if you knew what you knew now. And I'm like, I find it extraordinary because I'm looking at you and I'm the elder person here, but you're doing something that I never did, but you're saying, if you knew. So you guys, I just want to give you your props in terms of taking this platform and using it for what you're trying to do, because that in and of itself is what leadership personifies, to be honest with you. So it's interesting that we're having this discussion about leadership, but you're in a position right now where you're actually leading, right?
And it's tough. It's a lot of responsibilities.
Absolutely.
Right? And leadership is all about responsibility. So the more you avoid responsibility, in my opinion, the less of a leader you are.
Absolutely.
So let's go on to my second question. As a leader, what are some of the key elements you use to set your team up for success?
Good question. I think the first thing is you have to have a vision. Like what are you trying to achieve here, right? And when you have that, now you have to communicate that. If you're leading one person, could be your child, could be your family, could be your home, or could be on the job, what is it that you're trying to achieve today, next week, next month, long term? And then you got to communicate that. And the next challenge then becomes, if you have several different types of people, different personalities, you have to know who you're talking to. You have to know your audience. So the way you communicate with one person may not be the way you can communicate with the other. So you have to then develop different tactics, different ways of getting that vision across to that person, getting them to buy in, right? And for me personally, because I find that leadership in a way could be subjective. To me, that's just a personal thing. It seems it could be subjective because you can have someone that will employ a tactic that I may not employ, and they may see success. And I try to employ the same tactic, and I fail. So it's about knowing yourself, knowing how you can get your vision across to that person, and then another part of it too is be humble. Like I'm not a big fan of rah and ordering people around, and I'm not a big fan of that. So I'm still learning how to actually embrace delegating because I'm a doer, so I like to just do. But when you're a leader, you have to really embrace delegating, right? So that's another aspect of it that I'm still working on, I'm still trying to master, right? But definitely vision, communicating that vision in an effective way, and getting your charges to buy into that vision. That's huge, because if people don't buy in, you're not going to get anything done.
You ain't got nothing.
Right? Another key component also is you want to develop credibility. If your charges and the people you're trying to lead don't believe in you, or they don't trust what you're saying, I don't really see you succeeding. So you got to find a way to, one, get your vision across, and you have to really build credibility, build trust with the people that you're trying to impact or influence.
Absolutely. I absolutely. I'm gonna go one up on you. I think leadership is about a key component that I've learned in my experience is that positioning.
Okay.
Leadership is about positioning, like positioning this person for that task, and like you said, creating the credibility and the belief that they can do that task that's assigned to them. So positioning is Akil with the soundboard, it's Omar with the camera, it's Jeff with the IG live, it's my sister giving me the place, it's giving you the invitation to come and you actually coming. That's all positioning. And now that we're here in one place, now you see the effects of positioning and what we can accomplish.
That's a good point, because I think what you're saying is from my perspective in dealing with individuals that you're trying to manage or trying to lead, then you have to know what they can do. So you can put them in a position to succeed.
Absolutely.
Right? So it's also about knowing your people then. So that's another part of the communication. You just can't come into an environment and wanting to lead without learning about people first and foremost, right?
And I think in my experience with you, you always push the envelope because you believe that I could do that task.
Absolutely.
So when you're working, when you're an employee and you're in an organization and your manager believes in you, then it gives you the confidence to go out there and execute the plan.
Absolutely.
Right?
And that's a key component too, because that's trust.
Exactly.
Because I could tell you, oh, I believe you can do it, but if you don't believe that I believe you can do it, you're going to think I'm full of it.
Exactly.
Right? So again, it's about building trust. I just can't come on the scene and start managing you and telling you to do this, telling you to do that. I have to first get to know who you are, communicate with you on a daily basis, allow you to get to know who I am, what I want to achieve, and then we build that trust, and from there, then we can actually go about fulfilling what I think we should be doing, right?
Absolutely. So far, so good, Dirk. You're doing good.
Thank you.
Next question. So in the corporate world, what are some of the challenges you faced as a black leader?
You know, I have one way to address that, and this is a personal thing. I was built by my parents in a certain way where I am really oblivious to how people are saying, how people are acting around me. Like, I am sure that I've come across racism, but I can't give you an example of me coming across it unless it's blatant. Someone really comes out and in an extroverted way come at me with some blatant racism. But
Has that happened to you in the corporate world?
No, it hasn't.
Okay.
Right. Thankfully, because as you and I both know, it has happened to many people. But fortunately for me, it hasn't.
Okay.
I mean, I have seen a couple little things, and I will call people out when I think something is not right. You're saying something but that's because it's not coming at me. But some people just say things sometimes without thinking, and sometimes I take it upon myself to let them know that that's not cool, right? But me personally, I haven't, as far as I know, come across any kind of anti-black racism as far as the corporate structure is concerned. Or maybe I haven't been a part of the structure for long enough to come across.
And I admire that because you are, well, at the time you were the only black manager, and there must be some type of hardship in that maybe a lot of people may not understand. So I can respect your honesty about that question.
So let me go further then. Let me just expand on what I said about my parents. So I will say this, that I do move with a certain degree of confidence and self-awareness. When I find myself in a situation that I'm new to and I walk into an environment, I don't come across as a joke. I don't present myself like that. And I think that's a huge way of sort of guarding yourself against any kind of nonsense coming your way. So I would present myself confidently so that an individual would not step to me with any kind of nonsense. Now, I'm not suggesting that that would work every time. So I've been fortunate that I haven't been, not a victim, but no one has stepped to me with any kind of racism, blatantly or overtly. So I've been blessed that way.
Absolutely, absolutely. I've experienced from my previous work racism, and I'm kind of like you. I don't let that get to me.
Right.
To me, I look at it as ignorance from the jump.
Oh.
And I don't want to partake in anybody's ignorance.
Right.
Like, racism is a whole different level. And I'm kind of like you. I walk in any room with the confidence that I know what I'm talking about. And this is a great platform for us to give more advice to people, especially in our community. So,
absolutely. To not fit any type of stereotype.
Exactly.
So right off the top, don't let anybody associate you with whatever preconceived notions they may have of what someone that looks like you may be like.
Exactly. For example, sometimes we as black people, we have a lot of anger in us, I feel sometimes, and we come across as very, very, very aggressive. And sometimes we're in a disagreement with someone from like a white person or whatever the case is, and we automatically use the racism narrative. You and I don't think we would do that. We just kind of look at it as ignorance. It could be racism.
Could be.
I'm not denying the fact that it could be racism.
Yeah.
I just look at it as, I'm so confident as a leader that whatever you're projecting towards me, it doesn't affect me.
Right.
Right.
And we should be thankful then that whatever came towards us wasn't of the most extreme type that you just can't get around.
Well, there's another level. That's when we get to the
All right. You know,
the angry side of us.
Exactly. So like I said, to answer your question, thankfully I haven't been subjected to any kind of racism that I was able to identify.
I want to ask you this: how well do you separate your work life from your personal life?
Not very well sometimes. Again, this comes from parenting. Whatever endeavor that I choose to pursue, yeah, I got to do it well. It's just something that I was ingrained in me. So I find that for my work, it doesn't stop when I leave work. There's always a little something that I can do, something I may crack open a laptop and just work on something. Others may not do that. I do it by choice. I don't have to do it. No one is asking me to do it. I just choose to do it for myself. Because again, as a leader, you want to be prepared, right? When I get to work and somebody asks me something, I want to be able to answer. So I find that sometimes when I'm at home, I will be doing work, but again, by choice. I don't have to. So the separation of work and personal, I think that's something that everyone should work on because we do need our personal life. When work and personal life starts to converge, I just don't think that's a good thing mentally, right? You do want to separate them. You want to have leisure time, family time, recreational time, work time. You don't want them to start conflating. And I think emotionally it takes a toll. So I'm very keen and cognizant of how much work I do put in. But when people do call me 4 or 5 o'clock, I'm learning now. I just look at the phone and I'll pick it up.
Exactly.
So I'm getting better. I'm getting better. Yeah.
Great, nice answer. How much of an impact has COVID-19 done to the working class? What do you think?
Well, in my opinion, the working class, we're dependent. So disasters will impact us adversely first because we're dependent on maybe work. Just talking about, okay, let's the informal economy. People who may make food, or this pertains mostly to, say, developing countries, because I know the country where I come from. The informal economy is huge. People who, in their homes, make food and then they sell on the street. They got impacted. They had no way to earn a living because of COVID restrictions, right? So they got impacted so hard. Over here, people of the working class will have jobs that will get impacted because they depend, could be fast food, they got impacted adversely, right? So the working class will always be the first to feel the brunt of disasters such as COVID-19, unfortunately. Also, we could even talk about business owners. They will also feel the brunt of it, right? Because businesses had to close down. So it just depends on what industry you're in. There are certain industries that are susceptible to these sorts of disasters more so than others who can really insulate themselves and survive.
You said something very, very wise. You said that we are dependent.
Yes.
And I 1000% agree with you. I think there's a dichotomy going on in people right now. I think on one side, people of the working class want to work because they have bills to pay and they have their car payment and their house payment.
Absolutely.
And we're all about self-preservation.
Yes.
But on the flip side, maybe everybody in this room has that other side of them, that creative side that would expose your gift, that side that will make you become a leader if you step into that realm.
Yes.
And I think the system has done a very good job of putting fear in us.
Yes.
They've done an extremely good job.
Masterful.
Masterful. You couldn't want it any better than this.
No.
And we feel immobilized, or we feel like we're too dependent on our jobs. And I want people to change their mindset. I want people to develop that leadership quality in them. And that doesn't mean that you have to leave the job.
No.
I always recommend people who have the 9 to 5, who have, and I have a child too, so I'm qualified to talk about this topic, to start another venture.
Yes.
No matter how small, and go into it with 0% expectations, like this podcast, right? I don't have a big budget or a big database, or I just started. And when you start something, you create the standard and you can improve. Like, even with my podcast right now, I can tell as we speak that I'm improving.
Right.
And when you go on your second podcast, you're going to understand and notice, hey, I'm improving.
Right.
So I think there's a huge economy in the world with people, and we are solely dependent on the system. And my job is to develop the leadership in everybody who's around me, that you can lead the job. As a matter of fact, you may not even believe it, you can own the company.
It's true. It's true. That's why I can't help. I can't help but support your platform, because this is what you're basically getting across to the audience. For instance, you got Akil on the sounds, correct? You got Omar in photography. These are independent business people.
Absolutely.
COVID-19 can happen, but they won't be impacted because they're not dependent upon an organization to employ me. They're actually self-employed.
Absolutely.
Right? And that's what I mean when I say that we, the working class, we're dependent. So you're using this platform, again, leadership, because you're leading your son, you're showing your son that, look, you have to position yourself to sort of insulate yourself from these shocks that will occur from time to time. Could be the stock market crash, could be a thunderstorm, could be an ice storm. Your job will be impacted, but maybe your side venture won't be, so that can keep you afloat. So it's about having different streams of income, different things that you can depend on, right? So it's all about sort of absorbing that shock, but then being more productive on this side with something that didn't get affected as directly.
You said multiple streams of income. It's so important. Rich people call it a portfolio. So my thing is, I want everybody in here to have a portfolio. Don't just have one source of income. But that takes creativity. If you have sole income off of a job, your number one question is probably, well, how do I start a side business? What should I do? Like, sit down with yourself. Avoid all the noise. Social media and everything, they're there to confuse you. There's so much going on out there. You need to sit by yourself and don't think about the kids. I know we all love our kids. Put the kids to the side. Kids don't matter at this point. It's your mind and your belief system, and what do you believe about yourself?
Well, that's, the last question that you asked when I spoke about leisure time, family time, work time. So that's another piece of time that you got to put in it. Maybe meditation time to just focus on you, get back to your center and figure out, okay, where am I going next? I would direct people to your last podcast. I mean, you said so many things in there, but you spoke about ETFs, you spoke about R, you spoke about so many different things that people can explore in order to get themselves in a position where you can absorb different unforeseen disasters or shocks to the system where you're okay. Right?
Why I mentioned that is because most people don't invest. Our people don't invest. And it's because
statistically
we're the least. We invest the least as a race. We own the least amount of homes. We own the least of everything. And it's about self-education. That is why that stemmed the idea to bring you on the podcast is the education. I think the both of us have influence, and we are trying to figure things out so we can properly educate people. So I had to do my research about those things, but those are things that I've done a lot of research about Bitcoin and cryptocurrency, and that is what I'm trying to project is investments. You have to make an investment within yourself first. The leader always starts with self. Absolutely. Before people, before money, it always starts with self. Absolutely. So once you get that, then you understand where do you want to position your money. Just like Warren Buffett, just like Steve Jobs, they all position their money and they're very careful of where they position their money. I just read an article, Bill Gates owns, I think, half of the agricultural farmland in America.
Was it half? I think I read that too. I don't know if it was half. I don't know if it's half.
Yeah, I'm
it's a
pretty
considerable
sure,
amount, but I'm not sure if it's half.
Well, he's rich. Let's say half.
We'll get someone to fact check.
We'll get it
Someone
after.
will fact check that.
But he owns a lot of agricultural land.
Yes.
I don't see him in a Gucci shirt. I see him put his money in places where it's so effective that when he dies, the next 4, 5, 6 generations are okay. They don't have to worry about anything.
But you know what? You said something also in your last podcast that
Mhm.
I just recall,
Mhm.
and you talked about education, but you spoke about not the formal education. You spoke about the education that we give ourselves, which, in my opinion, is the most important education. Not the ones from college or university or high school. It's the education that we give ourselves outside of that. I'm talking about the reading that we do, right? The research that we do, the conversations that we have.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I couldn't refuse this invitation.
Why,
Because,
thank you.
the conversations, like I'm learning so much just from sitting here talking to you,
Mhm.
seeing the people you have working with you, right? So I can take this and I can maybe figure out, okay, what do I need to do? So you're inspiring me, right? So that's basically what I want to say about the education part. It's about the education that we give ourselves. And I think that's one of the most important things that everyone should get from leadership, is that you have to lead yourself first before you want to lead others, right? You said something very important. You said it starts with yourself.
Has to.
Everything starts with yourself.
Has to. And you're supporting the platform. I'm deeply honored to be here to talk to you. If you want to support it more, you can give us money. We can talk after. I can give you the e-transfer if you, or you can give me cash.
Tax deductible?
Mm-mm. We don't pay taxes. So do you think there is a lack of leadership in our communities?
Okay, that's a good one.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to start off by saying this. I'm not qualified to critique lack of leadership in our community, because I have to ask myself, okay, what am I doing to lead? So I'm going to start with me.
Cool.
From your last podcast about the self,
Mm-hmm.
right? But I will say that we definitely need more leadership. And when I say leadership, I mean just starting from the homes. Just starting from the homes. If we could start there, and then it branches out. But I'm going to start with me in terms of what am I doing, because I can't critique another if I'm not doing my part,
Mm-hmm.
right? So being here with you, being motivated to do a little bit more, because I have a habit of just taking care of me and my core, right? But I need to be a bit more proactive and try to influence others. You know what I mean? Because I do know that I've been very selfish in terms of focusing on just my immediate circle. But I find that it's time that we be a bit more open to influence. Like, what do I have to contribute, right? I can see that you are contributing. So that says to me, okay, what am I contributing? And so I'll start with me first, and I'm gonna, maybe someone listening to me will say, okay, what can I do? And then we'll start from there before spewing negativity and say, we have no leaders. No, what am I doing to lead, right? So I'm gonna start with me, and hopefully someone can hear me and say, okay, you know what, I'm gonna start with me, then we can just branch out and start leading in whichever small way that we can. Nothing doesn't have to be grand, it doesn't have to be enormous. It could be the it's the smallest thing, you know what I mean, in terms of, it could be financial literacy, it could be building a business together with a group of, it could be anything like that, right? And that doesn't have to be a grand scale. I think everybody thinks that they have to do this huge, influential thing, but it doesn't have to be that way. You can start small.
You can start small. I think, and I'm going to go back to your premise. I'm going to start with self as well. I'm always a work in progress. I think a leader is always a work in progress. We're always learning. We're always trying to better ourselves first,
Right.
and then radiate that to your friends or your family,
Right.
and whatever the case is. I will talk about the community. We need to do our part, like what you said, and I get a lot of wild ideas. I want to do something for the community. I want to do something for my community,
Okay.
because my community is it's not Chicago, but it is rough, and it's definitely rough for the next generation that's coming up, and they're gonna be facing things that you and I didn't face. It's a whole different world now in the 21st century.
Yeah,
so I'm trying to do my part in whatever way I can through collaboration, through the podcast. I'm trying now to do a podcast once a month. That may turn into once a week. I want to try to preach what I'm saying as clear and as to many people and as to many black people as I can, because we're always behind the eight ball. And we always have ignorance surround us from an introspective point of view, and even from out there with racism and all those sort of nasty things that are out there. So I think we all are a work in progress, and we need to collaborate more with our own kind, and take our kind serious and move forward. Cause it's there for us to really, like, the world is there for us there.
It is.
The opportunities are there in multitude.
We do have a tendency to fly solo. Generally speaking, we don't seem to trust each other. So we always want to do things on our own. But from what I can see, is that success is always collaborative. There's always someone behind you pushing you. And then it doesn't seem to happen on our own. But we as a community, from my observation, we tend to work by ourselves, which, as you can see, in my estimation, it's not that productive.
It's not working. Okay, so how do you motivate or encourage your team on a daily basis?
Good question. Good question. That comes back to the communication part, right? It comes back to communicating the vision. It comes with me knowing my team, right? Knowing what they're capable of and what they can do. It's me having them trust me and me trusting them, right? Daily, right? Again, because if that doesn't exist, we're really not going to achieve anything. So it's about really getting them to buy in. I mean, getting them to buy into what I'm trying to do.
So give me an example of how you let your team buy in. What would be a technique that you use to let your staff buy into what you're saying?
One of the first things I like to do, which works, is not positive reinforcement. So I'll use the positive reinforcement first, and then come up with a constructive criticism. Okay, you know what? You did this great, but here's what you can work on. Here's what we can get better. And another thing too is I look for ways where I was wrong. So I will go to that person and say, you know what, you were right. I was wrong on that. Like, to show them that it's okay, that I'm not always right. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
That goes a long way in building up that currency of trust. If you are able to humble yourself, you're not always right. I find that a lot of people in positions of authority, they come across as they're never wrong. And I find that with people that I work with, they're right and I'm wrong sometimes. I'm right and they're wrong sometimes. But it's not about competing. It's about talking to them, look, here's what I'm trying to do. And sometimes it's not even about numbers per se. I'll just be like, look, I just want to get the most out of you. I just want you to do the best that you can. And I'll actually say, how can I help you to be better? You know what I mean? I'll be like, you tell me how. What can I do to get you to be better?
Because you want to see them do better in that position.
Absolutely. Because when I do better, when they do better, we all do better.
Absolutely.
But I don't come to work not to do better. Like, what's the point? In my mind, what's the point? I know it's just, people say it's just work, but it's something that we do every day. Every day. So if we're gonna do it every day, then why not just put in a good effort for that day? and go home to your family and everything is good. But when I see somebody not putting in that effort, then I'll see what I can do. I'll ask them, okay, just tell me, what can I do to help you get to this point? And I'll even go from be like, am I being unreasonable in this expectation? You tell me. And I'll listen, I'll wait for an answer. Because everyone has an answer. So if you think I'm being unreasonable, then I'll work with you to say, okay, let's meet me halfway. Let's see what we can do, right? So it's this I like the collaborative effort. I like the collaborative stance of leadership. Now, don't get me wrong. Sometimes I do have to get a bit authoritative,
Of course.
because not everybody buys into that sort of leadership quality. So I have to show them sometimes, look, okay, I'm gonna have to get a little bit forceful here. You know what I mean? So you just have to know when to use it, when not to use it. Be authoritative, when not to be authoritative. Collaborative, when to be collaborative. Delegate, when you got to know when to use it, and you got to know your audience. Not everyone will respond. Delegating. Some people respond very well when I'm authoritative. They want someone to tell them what to do. Some folks are like that, right? So you have to know who you're talking to. It's key to know your audience.
Powerful, definitely. I think I concur. I agree with everything that you say. I think it's personal development. Like when I was a manager at my previous work, it was about personal development. It was about taking a sole interest in each individual.
Yeah.
Right? Because everybody's different. Everybody's is fighting different battles. Personal development. I want to make people better.
Yes.
Because motivation is great, but you know and I know motivation doesn't always work. That's where we want to instruct discipline. And I think when you instruct discipline in your work staff, discipline workers, when we can laugh and we can joke and we can have a good time, but you are disciplined as to the task at hand because we have daily objectives that need to be fulfilled. So I think it's definitely personal development within people to understand in people that they're leaders. They can lead in their job, even though it may not be their business. They can lead in that facet. They can lead in that sector, and at times motivation may not work. For example, you go outside and you see the weather forecast, and there's 30 centimeters of snow that's going to be dropping in the next 24 hours. That's where the discipline. That's when the motivation kind of drains down, and that's when the discipline picks up.
Absolutely.
So I think discipline is essential to all businesses.
Well, let me add something too. People, I think all of us have to realize your job is not who you are. Some people are fortunate enough to have a job or have a business that embodies who they are. But for most working people, our job is not who we are. It's a job. So my thing is bring your personality to the job. Bring who you are to the job. The job's not who you are. It's just something that you do. But who you are as a person, bring that to the job. So bring the discipline, bring the passion, bring the work ethic, bring that to the job. It's not about the job, it's not about the company, it's about you and how you represent yourself. You know what I mean? It could be anything. It could be you could be the janitor, you could be the CEO. But when you clean this bathroom or you clean that floor, when I come in and I see it, that will let me know who you are as a person, not as a janitor. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely. You went into family earlier. I'm gonna go in my family a little bit with my mom and my dad. They're both leaders, but they lead different ways.
Right.
My mom is a vocal leader, so she'll tell you, and she'll be very stern.
Yes.
And she has that expectation. We call it in our community tough love. Tough love. But she instilled that in me,
Right.
because that was what was necessary. No, I didn't live with my father, very close with my father, didn't live with him. So my mom had to do the disciplining in the house, and she led with fervor, like this is the standard, and there are consequences if you break any one of these laws. My dad was illiterate. My dad led with his action.
Right. Okay.
So as a little kid, I can still, in hindsight, my sister and I talk about it, and you can see, wow, he may not be able to articulate what he's doing, but you can still see with how he moves and how he leads through movement, and he leads by example. So
Yeah.
My mom and my dad, they lead very different. And they both instill tough love.
Yeah.
Very different people, but they lead. They're both leaders at the end of the day.
Absolutely.
So let's go to the next question. How do you prepare for a day with your team on average? What does it look like on a daily basis?
Good question. Information. So preparation. I like to be prepared, and I like to have information. So people that know me will get on me for how early I get up to go to work. I said, no, I don't have to go to work that early. I choose to go to work that early because I like to get myself prepared. I want to know what people did the day before, so I come in, I see the reports, I go over the reports, so that when I go out to deal with the people that I'm managing, that I know what's going on, right? So I think information is key, and the knowledge of what I'm dealing with is very important, right? I will be talking to people and they are amazed that, oh, how did you know that? I'll be like, I need to know that. If I want to do my job properly, I need to know. Ignorance is not bliss, not when it comes to being a leader.
And let me add something, not to interrupt you. What you don't know will hurt you.
Absolutely.
You can go ahead.
Absolutely. So, yeah, I mean, information and knowing what's going on, that's important for me. Again, I don't know everything, but you just try to arm yourself with as much information as you possibly can so that you can face the challenges that may come at you. Because I think and that goes with life as well, education. If you don't educate yourself, you'll be ignorant. People who are ignorant, in my opinion, are not armed with information that they need to be productive, right? In my opinion, again,
I agree.
take that with a grain of salt. I'm just saying,
I agree.
that's just my personal opinion, right? The more armed with information you are, knowledge, self-awareness, I think you're armed with, you're prepared for what comes your way.
I think we are in the information stage, and we're in the information world where we can get information at the palm of our hands, but there's a difference between information and transformation. And with my experience with you, you take the information, you're able to transform it and to translate it towards your team. And it gets to the point where we want to work for you. Now you got a loyal worker. We want to work with you. When we don't see you around, it's like, oh, where is he? Usually he has this brain, and everything is discombobulated because your brain, even though you delegate, you know how delegation is. When you delegate something, they're not going to be able to do it as well as you. They may be able to get through the day, but they're not able to lead the way how you lead because you're in that position and you know what you need to know and you're able to execute it on a day-to-day basis. So
I like you bringing that up because here's what I want to say to that. So another part of, in my opinion, excellent leadership is when you put certain systems in place, or when you have your team trust you to the point, or you trust your team to the point where if you're not there, I'm not suggesting that everything will go the way, but everything should run the way it would if you were there, right? And that comes with you actually communicating with the people, letting them know your expectations, and trusting them, right? To do what you would like them to do, even if you were not there. Because a pitfall that I think a lot of leaders take is they don't believe that anybody could do what they do the way they do it. I don't think that's healthy. That's not productive to me.
I'm guilty for that. I need to
right?
work on that.
A lot of leaders, they think they're so indispensable that if I am not here, it will not work properly. And I'm like, that's crazy.
That's crazy.
No, I was gonna say that's the worst kind of leader. No, it's a bit dramatic. That's not the way you should be, I don't think, because you need to be able to trust others to do and to function even if you were not there. Not to say that then there's no need for your job, but just in the meantime for that day or for a few hours, things will work if you're not there, right? That's a pitfall I think a lot of leaders make, is that they don't think that anyone can do what they do. And so they find that like you have this business of yourself, of your own, you'll be here all the time, every day, all day, putting in 16, 18-hour days because you don't trust anybody else to do what you do. And I don't think that's a very productive structure to build.
I completely agree with you. I think, first and foremost, I can't do this by myself. So this podcast in of itself requires me to trust people.
Absolutely. Excellent.
Yeah, I have to. I have to trust the cameraman. I have to trust the audio guy. I have to tell my sister, hey, and my sister prepares it for me and everything like that. So I completely agree with you. The delegation part, and that's something that is lacking, especially in small businesses.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
Especially in small business, because they think they're it.
Right.
They think that they're the life and death of the company.
Right.
And if that's the case, then they're gonna fail. They're gonna fail eventually. If you're not able to conduct a system and to create a system in which you're not needed there,
Right.
then that is something that if you haven't done as yet, I would highly recommend you starting it. You start it today.
That's where the 16 and 18-hour days start creeping in.
Mm-hmm.
Your physical health and wellness is at risk.
But after a while, I don't want to be here 16, 18 hours.
Ooh.
I want to hire the people that I need, put them back to positioning, and I go do another venture if I need to. Or I go and do another project if I need to. Or I start another business with somebody. Mindbliss, there's way more to go than this. This is the premise. This is the primitive, the startup, but there's other things that are leading after this.
I mean, absolutely.
So,
I mean, you'll go out on your way and say, listen, Dirk is going to conduct Mindbliss this week, and I'll be interviewing people for you.
exactly. You're doing good. For your first time, you actually did. I'm kind of impressed.
Wow.
So my next question is, who was the first person in your life to identify leadership in you?
Oh man, that's easy.
Mm-hmm.
My mom's is crazy. Like, this lady believes in me blindly.
Yeah.
Like, I think I could have walked in the moon and she'd be like, Dirk, you could have walked in Mars. No,
Yeah.
for real. Like, she thinks I can do just whatever I want. And that's the way she's always been.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So for me, it's easy. It's my mom's. Like, she's always believed in me. Always.
Mm-hmm.
And I've never had, I'll be honest with you, I've never had the mentality to, like, help. I told you, like, I'm very insular, which me appearing here with you, it's me trying to break out of that mold, out of that shell, to share, right? Because she's always said, Dirk, you have so much to share.
Yes.
I'm like, Mom, I'm good. But she thinks I do. And she believes that I do. And she's always said this. So my mom is the person that's seen that in me from as far back as I can remember.
Absolutely. It's my mom for me, and I'm going to add my sister.
Okay.
I'm going to add those two females, because my mom is kind of like your mom. Like, get to it. You can do anything you want. Right? And it's like, when you say that, it's kind of cliche. You're kind of, you're
Right.
used to hearing that,
Yeah.
and it's kind of vague.
But I believe that
I
does.
believe, and I believe it too. But it's so vague.
Yeah.
And of course, we can do anything. You're confident. I'm confident. I think I can do anything.
Right.
But it's too vague. And I think that my mom instilled in me leadership. She was very tough on me.
Okay.
Even raising my son, current, she's very tough on me. And that's the way how she leads.
But that's
And
because she knows you. She knows you.
She knows what I'm capable of. And she's always been in my corner. My sister now, she has been in my corner as well. My sister, I can come to my sister with any crazy idea.
She's got you.
She's got good credit, and she's the financer. Any idea that I have brought to my sister, I don't need to show her numbers,
She's got
profit, what's gonna happen. She just, here's a card, and she lets me go.
That's beautiful.
And she is an integral part of my success.
Beautiful.
And she has that, I like to call that stubborn belief in me, where, okay, well, just fund the idea. I don't even know what you're buying, but
Right.
I believe in you so much.
Trust you.
I believe in your idea and your concept so much that I'm going to risk
Right.
my credit to fund your idea. And
idea.
as you know, sometimes it doesn't work. And sometimes it just doesn't work. You have this vision and it doesn't work. But other times, when you connect and when you make that right, when you take advantage of the right opportunity, even though you don't have the money and you're able to service the money, beautiful things happen. So those two people.
Just to piggyback on that, so there's something you said about it not working, but did it not work? Because whatever you do, you'll take something from that to the next venture, right? So it may not work the way you wanted it to or intended it to, but you took something from, you learned something from that. You spoke about your DJ business, other ventures that you've had. I'm sure that you've taken something from each one.
Yes.
Put into Mindbliss.
Absolutely.
Right? So, yeah, we could use the word fail, but really it's just an experience, right?
And I'm bold. My sister knows that I'm bold.
All right. You go big. You go big.
Yeah, I don't need the metrics. If I believe in something,
Right.
I just do it.
Just run with it.
Yeah, because I know the power of belief.
Gotcha.
So you don't have to show me numbers and that sort of thing. If I believe
Right.
in your, that's how I invest.
I got you.
I invest on belief.
I understand.
Because belief will beat an expert all the time. Belief is such a powerful thing.
It is.
And I never realized that until my crisis. When you can actually believe something, and you actually have the chance to manifest that. It's like, wow, this is something that we all need to be aware of.
Absolutely.
We all need to know that we all have self-belief, and we're not using it enough.
No, we don't. No, we don't.
We're not using that part of our brain.
I would argue that there's more self-doubt.
Oh, absolutely.
That's
And it goes back to the system.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this question. What are your thoughts, what are your current thoughts on masculinity in our new social world?
Ooh, that's a good one. So, the first thing I have to say is I find that everything we have to label, right? And I'm wondering, okay, when you say masculinity, what does that mean? Does it mean being a man?
Okay, let me go first.
What do you mean? You gotta expand.
I think the masculinity has been a little bit shaded. I think that my goal is to appreciate masculinity because we know what's going on in the world. We don't have to go into that at this podcast. That's a separate podcast.
Very separate.
Very separate.
Thank you, sir.
I want to highlight men who are doing well, who are established, who are, they're doing great for their communities, they're great fathers, they're great people in society. I think we need to highlight that because masculinity, I think, in the new world has taken a downturn in terms of how we are projected, how we black men are projected in society. It's different from white man. So I think that there is work, and I think one of the premises of this podcast on this platform, because I created this platform so I can talk about these topics, is that we need to work on masculinity back, like what you said earlier, back in the home.
Okay.
There's too many single mothers out there, especially in our community.
Okay.
So we need to start with uplifting the masculinity trait in our community, one individual at a time. We need work. So I see a successful person like you. I want you on the pod. It's my duty, I feel.
Okay.
I have a son, and I don't want him to be deterred into some of the things that are going on in the world.
Okay.
So the more I can lead by example, I think the better the chances of him growing up to be male.
So I see where you're going. So I'm gonna say this about masculinity then.
Okay.
Me personally, I try to keep things very simple. I try not to be complicated. I try not to be overly dramatic with these things. So when it comes to masculinity, I'm gonna start about being decent. A decent person. So start with how you treat people. That's very masculine to me. If you treat a woman with respect, treat your parents with respect, treat people that you come across daily basis with respect, that's masculine to me. The way you carry yourself, that's masculine. You spoke about, in our community, single mothers. Is that very masculine that we have a lot of single mothers? I don't know.
I think we as men, yes, we need to work on that. We evade.
Right.
A lot of men evade their responsibilities.
Okay, let's start there. Like that for me, that encapsulates masculinity. How do you take care of your responsibilities?
Well, going back to the single mom example, being there for your kid.
Absolutely.
Everybody knows my story here. I don't have to get into it, but I'm very aware of my kid. I don't want him to get sucked up to different sort of things, and I want him to know that there's a presence. A boy needs his dad, same way how a girl needs her mom.
Yes.
You know, kids are closer with their parents of the same sex. So I have a boy, and I just want him to know that it's okay being a man, it's okay being a black boy or a black man, and you don't have to be segregated by the system. You can be who you are truly, and I have no problem until the day I die leading you in that direction.
Absolutely.
If we can get that premise across the board to men that are growing up, or men in situations where, you know, they may have differences with the child's mom or going through a divorce or whatever, I think that lessens the crime rate. I think that promotes education, because we have to be better. We have to have personal development within us. And I think that would be kind of a revolutionary, kind of like a renaissance. It would be something completely new for our community.
Well, that's the part of masculinity that I would like to focus on. I would just like to first focus on how we treat ourselves and how we treat the people closest to us. Because as you know, I'm not sure, you're probably aware, because of COVID, domestic violence has gone through the roof.
Yeah.
What kind of a man resorts to domestic violence? Now, I'm not suggesting I know the numbers in terms of female versus male, male versus female, but I do know that predominantly it's male abusing a female.
Absolutely.
That's not a man.
I agree.
So let's start there in terms of masculinity. You know what I'm saying?
Great answer. So here's my next question for you. How can we better prepare the next generation in this new world?
Oh, did we cover that? Education.
Education?
Education. We have to educate ourselves. And again, I'm not talking about the standard institutionalized education. We can have that. But I'm talking about the education that we give ourselves. Right? What we choose to read, who we choose to communicate with, the people that we have around us. Is it negative? Is it positive? You know what I mean? The words we choose. Words are powerful. How do we speak? We have to arm ourselves with information.
Yes.
If you look around us today, we are repeating ourselves. The generation after generation, we keep repeating the same nonsense. Why is that? The old adage, if you don't, what does it go? If you don't educate yourself or learn from it, you're bound to repeat it. That's what happens today, man. Like we just keep reliving the same thing over and over again because we're not educating ourselves, right? I think they're celebrating Black Wall Street down in the U.S. just the other day, the massacre in Oklahoma, where they just decimated that community. I mean, how long ago did we know about that? But we're still divided and separated. So we have examples of us coming together and building something worthwhile. Where's it? And again, I think that starts with us. I'm not absolving myself of any responsibility. I'm just as guilty as the next person not doing their part. Because as I said to you, I've always been very just insulated and just working the dirt. But that's not helping the community. Right?
What has changed my life is reading. It's a game changer.
It's phenomenal.
And I found out that if you can command the English language, whether you're a salesperson, whether you're a business person, it doesn't matter what field you're in, the world is at your mercy. I think when you are able to properly, if you're willing to enhance your vocabulary, I want to learn a word a day. That's my goal to myself.
What word did you learn yesterday?
I learned the word. What was the word again?
See how I'm testing it?
I know.
What word was
We'll get back to that. We'll do that. We'll do that off camera. You're trying to, I know what you're trying to do.
No, but so communication leads to conversations.
Yes.
Conversations leads to connections, and it's this.
But you
it's
have
like
to
a
be,
domino effect.
But you have to be exuberant in reading.
Absolutely, absolutely,
You have to be excited about reading.
absolutely.
You have to be jubilant about reading.
You have to.
Like, reading has changed my life. So, and whatever my idea is, I run it through Mindbliss. So I am actually working on a book club.
Mm.
So every time I buy a book, I want to buy an extra copy, and I want to give my friends, because I only can start with my friends,
Absolutely.
right? I don't have the community yet. I don't have the world
Right,
yet.
right.
But I want to just try to advance my books to my friends to say, read.
What was the last book you bought?
I read actually the 50 Cent book, the Curtis Jackson book.
The Power or something like that.
I don't remember what it's
Hustle
called.
hard, hustle smart.
What it's called?
Hustle hard, hustle smart.
Hustle Hard, Hustle Smarter.
I'm the one
Excellent book.
Who'd you give it to? Did you give someone
Right
a
here.
copy?
Right here.
Just checking.
Dirk, I know. Dirk, listen. I know you, boy. But I wanted to do that,
Yeah.
and I'm going to continue doing that.
Yeah.
And Lenny was like, "Oh, he learned a lot."
No, it's a good
So
habit.
I
I've done the same.
want people to read.
Mhm.
That is my focus, and especially us as a race. And I keep on going back to race because we're black. We don't read.
Is it safe to say reading is power?
Reading is more than power. Reading is, you can read and get one idea out of a book, and it changes the rest of your life. One idea. One sentence, one paragraph hits you right between the eyes, and you're like, oh my goodness, this person is talking about me. Everything
The
switches.
word transformation.
There you go. Information, you gotta transform the information because there's so much noise out there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Reading is everything.
I agree.
I wanna teach my kid to be an avid reader.
Absolutely.
Because when you are able to, the knowledge is so out there, and I want my child to be an avid reader like I am. I read every day. I do philosophy, I do American history, I do I just want to read, I want to get information out there.
How's the book of Proverbs go?
The book of Proverbs is good. The fear of God is the first step to knowledge. Now the word fear doesn't mean when you see God run away.
Right.
The, the word in the Hebrew text actually, it means revere, respect. You don't fear your mom, you respect your mom. You don't fear your dad. Well, a lot of people do. I respect my dad. It's a reverence. So I tell people to read the Bible. I come out here because it always starts, like I said, with me, with self. So I put out my Proverbs book to show my friends, because they're the ones who are seeing me, that I'm not just talking that talk.
You're living it. You're walking.
I'm not just talking that talk.
Gotcha.
A lot of people in society, they're full of just yapping.
A lot of talking.
We are actionary people. We are action first. We always deal with action first. And being bold is to go into anything head first into the unknown.
That's why I'm here, actually, to support you taking your action.
Yeah, I
This
appreciate
is
that.
enough promise.
So let me go on to the next question. What are some of the characteristics you believe you need to have to become a leader?
Characteristics to become a leader.
Throw some at me as we end this interview.
You gotta have something you want to achieve.
Mhm.
Number one, right? You gotta have a vision.
Mhm.
You gotta have a goal. What do you want to achieve? Second, you gotta know that you don't know everything.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? Like, you don't know everything. So you want to surround yourself with people that can bring something to the table, because you don't know everything. Third, you gotta look at humility. You gotta be humble.
Yeah.
You gotta be humble. You can't be self-absorbed. You know what I mean? You gotta be humble. So those three things, I think, once you start with those, that's a good building block. That's a good foundation.
Mhm.
I mean, I think the time is getting to us, but there's other things to go with all of those. But if you have a vision or have a goal, surround yourself with people who can buy into that, and they can bring something to the table, knowing that you don't know everything,
Mhm.
right? And ask a lot of questions.
Yeah.
right? Because answers. Ask questions. Just keep asking questions, man. You said something on your last podcast, I remember you said something like that. Everything is inside of us.
Yes.
We may not know the answer. It's in us, but if I'm talking to you, based on maybe something you said to me, you bring the answer out of me. So my thing is, don't sit with yourself by yourself, which has been my habit. You're not going to get anywhere with that. You have to talk to people. You have to believe in people. You have to believe that they can bring something to the table. Be humble. Ask a lot of questions because you don't have all the answers. And go from there.
Excellent. I definitely agree. I think when it comes to a leader, once again, self-discovery, it starts with self. Other things are patience.
Patience, yeah. That's
I think a leader is very patient.
Yeah.
And impatient at the same time.
Yeah, I get that.
I get that. You have to be patient. You have to be impatient at the same time.
Yeah, I get that.
Right? I think that, especially us people, we've been disenfranchised. We've been deprived of so many things. That leadership spirit is suppressed in us, and it's down so low that we can't even see it sometimes. But it's there, and that is my goal of this podcast and sitting down with you, is developing the leadership quality in all of us.
Yeah.
And I think that's the goal, and the more conversations like this, then we're able to put more people aware of the current situations and the current times.
And that's the education aspect that I'm talking about. It's about, because the information about where we are and why we are where we are, it's out there. You have to find it, you have to seek it. Because if you don't know where we are and why we're here, then we will always be here. Do you know what I'm saying?
Not too far from slavery, what's going on right now.
It's people think that slavery is so far removed. There's people who are in slavery right now, today. You know what I mean? The slave trade is, don't take my word for it, just do your research, right? I mean, there's police organizations right across North America deals with it on a daily basis. There are kids, young girls, young boys that are being trafficked right now at this moment, right here in North America. If you don't want to label it slavery, it's up to you. Yeah. But that's slavery. So it's still with us, and it will still be with us if we don't educate ourselves and be diligent not to repeat the past.
And on my last note, I think when it comes to slavery, it's the bondage is in the mind now. Our mind thinks slavery. Even though we're not shackled anymore, like 300 years ago, the mind, and unless you free that bondage, especially for our people, then we'll forever be in slavery.
That's a good way to end it, sir.
Dirk Rhodes, excellent interview. We're gonna have you on at a future date. This was good, and you look good today, man.
Thank you.